So welcome everyone to this new episode of Let's Review, where we take a look at books on finance, psychology, self-help, or personal improvement. Today the subject of the video will be a book by Jordan Peterson. It's 12 Rules for Life, an Antidote to Chaos. I really like this book, which aims at setting your house in order. Before we jump into the author of the book and the book itself, let us discuss what I think of this book. So it is first of all not for everyone, although the audience is everyone. So let me explain. The book is really good at providing the light of guidance for people that are lost. And even people who are not entirely seeking life's meaning or have already found it can still learn a lot from this book. So it is astonishing with how much precision Jordan touches the chords of the soul and is capable of representing seemingly otherworldly needs with such ease. So in other words, the lexicon found in these books is beyond those who read one book every 5 years. But if you do not read books often and this is your first choice, you might want to start with something easier to digest. Nevertheless, if you can fully place your concentration on exfoliating a very deep thought linked between philosophical, the religious, and the physical and psychological plane, then you will really find some meaning and purpose in the pages of this book. So this book might even improve your existence and lessen the evil that is around you. So it is therefore a very recommended read. Now, who is Jordan Peterson? Jordan Peterson is a Canadian clinical psychologist. He is an author and he's an Harvard professor, and is one of the leading thinkers of this century. Now, Jordan studied for many years neuroscience and researched personality and temperament for just as many years. Though trained as a behaviorist, he is drawn to analyze and talk about psychoanalysis with focus on archetypes and the persistence of conflicts and the role of the defenses and rationalization in everyday life. Now, in this book, Jordan cautions the reader to be very wary of ideologues who attempt to disguise ideologies as science or philosophy because they think that only they know how to make the world a better place, despite not taking care of their chaos in their life first. So Jordan studied extensively the role of ideologues in positions of power and how they came to influence people's attitudes to the point of committing even murder of the masses in the name of utopia. So Dr. Peterson came under the spotlight recently thanks to his speeches that met deep, unarticulated needs of the younger generation that tend to be divided into two extremes, which is relativism, where even the values and the morals are subjective, and ideologues. They have a very hyper, judgmental, and censorious line of thinking. So Jordan attempts to draw a line, but more like a path between these two extremities, where one shall find a peace from all the conflict of the moral codes, with questions that search the definition for virtue and justice. So those questions are what animate this book. Since laws and rules seem to provide much needed morality guidance, Dr. Peterson provides 12 rules to restrict the chaos within, to take responsibility of our life first, before trying to change the world outside our boundaries. Some rules are really demanding, but if we deem them unattainable, then we lose life's meaning. The pursuit of happiness is a pitiful ideology according to Dr. Peterson. He thinks that real life's meaning can be found in the great stories of heroes, where the hero finds the development of his character through pain and joy. So the hero does not concern himself with how the world really is, but he concerns himself with how he should act in a world where chaos and order are constantly at play. In this world, order means to live accordingly to well-understood cooperative social norms in a social structure, where chaos is when unexpected things are happening, emerging catastrophically in the midst of the commonplace. So life's meaning is to be found in the border of the ever-intertwined chaos and order, through the elevation of the individual and the willingness for everyone to carry the heavy burden of being, which is full of suffering. So this means taking the heroic path, breaking our old beliefs and building ourselves anew, taking responsibility and trying to reduce the poison of the world. This is a lot to ask, but the alternatives are doom, the horror of totalitarian regimes, catastrophe, and the existential pain and weakness of a purposeless individuals who gives up on life. So too much order is bad, but also chaos is bad. So this book is a guidance to the right course, a narrow path in between, where we are the best that we can become, and where if we all live properly, we will collectively flourish. With that said, let's start from the first rule of life. Rule number 1 is stand up straight with your shoulders back. We, like animals, fight mercilessly for status because of scarcity. We want to achieve dominance to reduce the stress of living, to thrive and to survive. So this produces conflict. To avoid conflict in society, we developed some social rules, norms, creating harmony, but also a disparity between the winners and the losers. So in society, winners take all in all aspects of life. This dominance hierarchy is more than human though. It is an environmental and it is eternal. So a part of your brain keeps track of your status in the dominance hierarchy, affecting every aspect of your life and even controlling the secretion of serotonin. So less serotonin makes us more negative, more stressed, and more craving for impulses that can induce pleasure with some positive feedback loops. High serotonin, on the other side, makes you calm and confident. This mechanism can malfunction though without food or sleep, or if we are deeply uncertain, which is why we need a routine to define and render life calm, simple and predictable. If someone is badly hurt or traumatized and made aware of the possibility of suffering and death, then the dominance counter can create more hurt, making us more susceptible to anxiety. This is why bullying protracts throughout one's life. Also, naive and harmless people think that every person is intrinsically good, which makes them very good prey for genuinely malevolent people. Some get completely controlled and they are afraid to fight even after all kinds of mistreatment. Such people should see resentment as sort of an anger and as a sign that something must be done, unleashing a force that holds tyranny at bay. We must stand up for ourselves to protect society from the evil and the corruption. When people recognize the capacity for monstrosity within themselves, their fear decreases, their self-respect increases, and they begin resisting oppression. They will stop the growth of resentment that grows should they not act, and this will develop strength of character. So begin from correcting your posture, stand up straight, and already this will communicate different thoughts to everyone around you. Stand up for yourself physically and emotionally. Accept to carry the burden of being and face the challenges ahead instead of cowering. Speak your mind and put your desires forward. Dare to be dangerous, and your serotonin will respond accordingly. Rule number 2 is treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping. Humans have a great capacity for wrongdoing and inflicting pain for the sake of it, voluntarily, even to ourselves. So given that, without human enterprise, and we have a hard time taking care of ourselves. The primary moral issue of society is to control the violence and the impulsive greed of the selfishness. It is easy to believe that people are arrogant and egocentric, always looking out for themselves. But there are some that are on the opposite side of the spectrum, shouldering the burdens of others, devaluing the self and not taking care of themselves. You must bargain for yourself as much as for others, or else you become a slave in a tyranny. So humanity deserves sympathy for the burden it bears. We all have a vital role to play in what the future will be. It is normal that we will fall short of expectations sometimes, but it doesn't mean that we have no responsibilities. We need to be able to thrive and to ask ourselves what life will look like if we were to take care of our different aspects in our life properly. So understand where you are, where you want to go, and charter your course. Discipline yourself carefully by keeping your promises and rewarding yourself to continue to motivate yourself. Rule number 3 is make friends with people who want the best for you. Sometimes people hang out with the wrong bunch because of low self-esteem, or they refuse the responsibility for their life. They will choose acquaintances with a troubled past. They think they do not deserve any better, so they do not look for it, or perhaps they do not want the troubles that come with better living. Other times people try to rescue who they hang out with, but they risk being pulled down if not careful. After all, not all who fail wish to be saved. A lot of people manage to live just fine at the bottom, and it is hard to separate those who seek to exploit you and bring you down from those who pray for help. After all, down is a lot easier than up. Maybe you're trying to save them to do the right thing, but before you help them, you should always find out why that person is in trouble. Not all bad happens on its own. Maybe they brandish misery as a weapon for hatred to prove the world's injustice. At least give yourself the time to figure out if a person truly wants help. The desire to improve is the precondition of progress, so you should choose friends who want things to be better and not worse. If you surround yourself with people that want better from you, they will not tolerate your cynicism and destructiveness. They will encourage you to do good, punishing you carefully when you don't. People without aim will do the opposite, because your improvement will cast their failures in faults in a dimmer light, making them grow resentful and jealous. They realize in their soul that their immobility and cynicism are unjustifiable, and that they stop carrying the world's weight on their shoulder where it belongs. This will hurt them deeply, so they will shadow and downplay your victories instead of celebrating with you. Friendship is a reciprocal arrangement, so choose it wisely. Rule number 4 is compare yourself to who you were yesterday and not to who someone else is today. Because we live in big cities and we are very interconnected, our hierarchies are extremely vertical. No matter how good you are at something, someone out there is better than you at it. So failure is the price we pay to have standards, which are necessary because of the real and harsh consequences of mediocrity. We will never be equal. We are all unique and we cannot be compared to others. If the internal voice makes you doubt everything, maybe it is time that we stop listening to it. Take every activity. If there was no better or worse, nothing would be worth doing because nothing could be improved. This is how we add meaning to the things we do. Looking at the big picture, there are many games of success and failure playing all at once. So if you're not good at one, you can still play a plethora of other games. If everything was always successful, we wouldn't be doing anything difficult or new, and we wouldn't grow. Also, the specifics of the game that you choose to play is so unique and individual that it cannot be placed on a scale next to different games. Do not undermine your result. Maybe there is something you missed out. Gratitude is a good protection from victimhood and resentment. So your internal critics use only one single domain to compare your life to other people. But what if a guy successful at work has a wife cheating? Who is better then? The point is, we are eternally moving from point A to point B, where point B is always eternally better for us. If this wasn't the case, we wouldn't act. The past is fixed, but the future can always be better. Start by setting little things in order, something very small every single day, and reward yourself for doing it. In a few years or even months, your life will be totally different. Now, aim higher because what you aim for determines what you see. When we focus on things, we see nothing else. When we are in a crisis, we see no good things, only a load of bad ones. But if we focus on plenitude of things that we can do and still improve slightly, we can create a value system. Observe what you desire, articulate it and prioritize it, and you will get rid of bitterness and resentment if you take responsibility. Let some light in instead of cursing the darkness. Be faithful and realize that the tragic irrationality of suffering in life must be counterbalanced by an equally irrational commitment to the essential goodness of being. So start by looking around you for things you would be willing to do right now and that you can fix in this moment that will make things better. And if you cannot find anything, look for something smaller and start doing it. Negotiate instead of becoming a martyr. Concern yourself less about others because you have plenty things to do yourself. Rule number 5 is do not let children do something that makes you dislike them. Now, many believe that children are capable of no harm and that all evil is emanated by adults and that is learned over time. But statistics show that less rules in society bring along more conflicts, as it is in the case for children. So as age progresses, we also behave less outrageously and violently because actions have consequences for adults. This prevents much harm. So children must be tended and disciplined to thrive. This is reflected in their attention-seeking behavior, which is important for their development. Aggression is after all innate because it facilitates obtaining the desires. The only question for us children is, can they get away with it? Which is why they are so challenging often. They are testing the limits they can push themselves without being punished. Teach them how to behave well by rewarding them. Do this also for people, not only for children. Opting out of punishment makes the child unconscious of the evil of the world, making them easier to harm by the outside world. or making them parents grow resentful instead of punishing them at the right time. So use rules, but not too many, and enforce them with the minimum necessary force, incrementally and in a reasonable manner. Rule number 6 is set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. When humans face terrible injustice of being and suffering, they tend to curse the existence. Many stop there, others act upon it and blame something other than themselves. If they realize life is evil and there is no escape from death and suffering, they aim at destruction, acting in despair to punish others as if someone was responsible, and taking vengeance to the extreme, almost making their action justified for considering how hard they were crushed. Although some people emerge from atrocity and do good because they learn evil must be kept on a leash, others begin to become corrupted after experiencing unbearable suffering. So start by stop doing what you know is wrong. Do only those things that you can do with honor and you know that are intrinsically good. Do not blame others until you have set your house in order first. Your head will clear up as you start removing the lies, and you will notice more subtle things that you are doing which are wrong. Stop doing those things too. Your life will become simpler, and even though tragedies will still happen, you will be less affected by them. You will bear the inescapable tragedies and move on. Perhaps you will see anxiety retreating after the initial spike. Perhaps you will notice life is generally good. Perhaps you will also notice that you are a force for the peace, and if everyone acted the same way, the world wouldn't be so evil after all. Rule number 7, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. Because life is suffering, most pursue pleasure and live only in the moment and do whatever necessary to achieve their goals, by even lying, cheating, stealing, manipulating, and so on. The tragedy of life has been used to justify the means and the pursuit of self-gratification. But is there a better way? Something was passed along from our ancestry in ancient stories from our past, that something better might be attained in the future if we give up something of value in the present. Work is just like sacrifice. Long ago we realized that life could be bargained with. Behaving properly now could bring future rewards. We began doing so, and it became society's contract, which began with sharing with others what was abundant so that in times of need you could be taken care of. So it is easier to be obviously selfish and impulsive, so holding out impulses goes against our instincts. When things aren't going well, it's not the world's cause, it is the fault of what is most valued subjectively. It might be time to let go of some presuppositions by sacrificing something to become something we are not, something better. Ideas can possess humans and make them act on it, but some people die at the expense of some ideas, while all they could simply do was to let the idea die for them so that the creator of the idea can continue onwards. The faith that continues to live among the dead of those ideas is our thinking. Some convictions need to be sacrificed so that we may continue living. If following blindly impulses for short-term gain is wrong and evil, then good can be found in the counterpart, where you regulate your impulses, you organize a value structure aimed at the betterment of being, and you stack up actions today for a better future. Rule number 8 is tell the truth, or at least don't lie. Some people attempt to manipulate reality's perception, thoughts, and actions in a cunning way to promote a desired outcome. So living this life has two premises. One, that all I know is everything I need to know, and number 2, that the reality is unbearable left to its own devices. But the first is wrong because you cannot know if your idea might be wrong or if it has flaws, and the second is pure manipulation and distortion. If you bend the world around you to reach your goal, you will never know if there is better goals to achieve. By living in a lie, you suppress who you really are and who you could become. This is true conceptually, because to fight the unknown, you need to know things you don't. And it is also biologically true, because where new experiences activate new neural connection in your brain, it forms new proteins. Lying weakens your character. You will be downed more easily by adversity, and you may force yourself to do terrible things to cover up your lies. It is willful blindness, the refusal to know something that could be known to avoid responsibility. But error necessitates sacrifice to be corrected. So what can save you is the willingness to learn from what you don't know. Every learning is a little death. Every new information challenges previous conceptions, forcing them to die before they can be reborn into new knowledge. So to change you must set ambitions, most important of which are the ones of the character. Pay attention to words and actions, and you will be able to feel an internal sensation of division and weakness when you speak untruthfully or misbehave. This way you can root out deception. It lets you acquire new information to let the goal transform itself. By doing this, you walk towards a good you wouldn't be able to comprehend if you insisted on your axiomatic beliefs and continue to lie to yourself. You cannot really know if life will be good or bad, and that is why you must be very courageous, like the heroes of the stories Jordan speaks about. Rule number 9 is assume that the person you're listening to might know something you don't. Advice is what you get when a person you talk to wants to revel in the superiority of his intelligence. But genuine conversation is instead an exploration, an articulation, and strategizing. It is talking, but it is mostly about listening. So try not to steal problems from other people by giving them a solution. Let them talk and simulate the world and how to act in it. Thinking is the internal dialogue between different views. It involves conflicts, meaning negotiation and compromise within the self. It creates little avatars in a fictitious world that act out your thoughts. Sometimes one or more avatars need to die. There are multiple types of conversations. Some where there is no listening and thinking, but only speaking and rehearsing what you have to say next to establish dominance and the hierarchy. In other conversation, the speaker tries to prove he is right, to attain victory in his point of view, denigrating other people's viewpoints and using selective evidence and trying to impress the listener with an oversimplified view. These people attempt to validate the assumption structure they identify with instead of trying to learn something new. You need to have a proper discussion with others for a healthy mental function. So mutual exploration is the conversation where reciprocity is present and everyone addresses a problem without insisting on the validity of their own position. All act as if they had something to learn. This constitutes the higher form of thought, which is active philosophy, and it requires people to adopt unknown views instead of known ones. A lot of the problems you have are still there because you are too ignorant to protect yourself from them. So your current knowledge makes you not safe. This is why you need to have meaningful conversations, where you assume the other person has reached a careful and thoughtful conclusion. Failing to do so means repeating only what you already believe and learning nothing. Let your old presuppositions die and make new, better ones. Rule number 10 is be precise in your speech. A lot of what we perceive are misled truth. Every object is part of a much larger ecosystem we're not focusing on in that moment. This is because our brain has the necessity to transform complex things in very narrow thoughts to not be overwhelmed, and we only note the tools and the obstacles that we interact with. So we must be precise with our aim, else we get lost in all the complexity. The world is simple and makes sense only when it goes according to plan. We begin noticing other things only when problems show up. But when things we depend on break down, we lose ourselves and we experience chaos. Our brain generates cortisol and adrenaline to keep us alert and ready. Then we begin parsing through the chaos and we confront it and turn it to order. So avoiding the problem makes this compound, but specifying what the problem is, admitting its existence and articulating it is the first step in enabling its resolution. You might think that if you don't articulate failure or victory, you cannot lose, but this line of thought produces only disappointment and hatred. What is not specified is about everything, and everything is too much to handle. Therefore, say what you mean and act out on what you say, then pay attention. And note your errors by articulating them and striving to fix them. And this is how you can protect yourself from tragedy. Rule number 11 is do not bother children while they are skateboarding. When kids skate, they do it dangerously to become more competent. Kids need a playground dangerous enough to remain challenging, where they try to optimize risk instead of minimizing it. They use risk to develop themselves. When untrammeled, we live on the edge, confident but very daring to confront chaos, giving us a sense of excitement. If we are overprotected, we will fail when faced with real challenges or opportunity presents itself. So aggressiveness displayed on a child is a sign of a drive to be competitive, outstanding, and unstoppable to strive for victory. Do not suppress it. Nurture it to become more sophisticated, to develop character traits. At minimum, aggressiveness has the utility of self-protection, and often not enough attention leads to more problems when people become pushovers. This can lead to resentment, when people who give get nothing in return and they cannot demand for fear of respect or morals. So being taken advantage of can lead to that, and you might need to stand up for yourself on such occasions. This will get you the listener's attention and their respect. But you need to know what you're trying to get out of the situation, and you need to be prepared to articulate it. Tell the other person what you would like and do not assume that they should know. Make small and reasonable requests whose fulfillment satisfies you. This is how you nurture aggressiveness. Overprotected children turn actually into weak and dangerous and destructive men. Do not bother children while they are skateboarding. Rule number 12 is pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. People are social because they like members of their own group, and they are also antisocial because they don't like people from other groups. People have to identify with groups to develop individuality, to organize and to protect themselves, to have reasonable probability of climbing the social hierarchy. So they favor their group because it helps them thrive. Life is inevitably fragile, and existence and limitations are always linked because being requires becoming. Even if life sometimes is too much to bear, hating life makes life itself unbearably worse. There is no good in that idea. It only produces suffering for the sake of suffering. Is there a coherent alternative to that? Dr. Peterson thinks that there is no answer to this question to be found in thinking, as it leads inexorably to the abyss. In such cases, noticing and not thinking does the trick. To deal with life's crisis, you have to set aside some scheduled time to think about the problems and how to address them. Life doesn't stop moving even when things go wrong. Never think of the problem outside the allotted time, and do not schedule thinking time at night, or you will not sleep. Have faith and consciously decide to presume the primary goodness of being. Aim high and act upon that dream. Once you are aligned, you can take care of the day. Put the things you can control in order. Cats are basically like the being of the existence. They are very unpredictable, but if you pay attention to them, they might come and rub against your leg, even on a bad day. So pay attention to life. You may be fortunate enough to be confronted with small opportunities of that sort, to make up for the ineradicable suffering that accompanies being. So do not wish for problems to disappear, but wish for more understanding. And ask what you might do for more resolve, to strengthen yourself and move on. You must be willing to ask yourself the question though, and you will not like the answer. Life is in control only when you accept your faults and responsibility. You must reconsider yourself, figure out how to improve, resolve through, and actually do what is needed. That is when you must decide if you want no responsibility or if you actually want things to get better. That is the prerequisite for negotiation. To conclude, Jordan shows a narrow path to abide by that give a direction to life's meaning with the following phrases. In a day, you have to do the most possible good in the shortest period of time. In a year, you have to ensure that the good you will do next year is going to exceed the good that you did the previous year. And in your life, you should aim for paradise and you should concentrate on the day. Justify the suffering of those who came before you, as they have given their life for progress, so be grateful in that. Act in remembrance and gratitude. Strive for people around you to do what is right. Treat strangers as brothers, so they may become one. And extend the hand of trust so that the best part of them can step forward. Offer genuine but conscious help to the fallen. Conduct yourself as if being is more valuable than not being, so you may not become bitter and resentful due to the existential pain of existence. Confront the uncertainties voluntarily with faith and courage. Share with people what you deem important. Aim for wisdom and distill it into words, to speak them forth as if they matter. You have to let your old you die so a better person can be reborn. Seek further enlightenment and do not cling to your limited knowledge. but be in a state of continuous transformation. Place your becoming above your being by accepting your insufficiencies and continually rectifying your life. Despise not what you have, but remember those who have nothing and strive to be grateful. Consider that progress might be blocked not because you lack opportunity, but because you have ignored it, focusing on other wrong things. This path is far more preferable to the alternative of a painful and unbearable existence. Do what you can to make things better. Accept a helping hand when in need, and be strong against adversity, focusing on the next move during dire situations. When everything is chaotic, the cure is a little peace and some control. Come together with your loved ones in the face of tragedy, and do not take people that love you for granted. The best way to fix the world is to fix yourself first. Your inaction or conscious sins weakens you, making you unable to thrive, and this will corrupt your soul. Nothing cannot be made worse. Life is hard enough when it is not going well, but to suffer terribly and know that yourself is the cause is to live in hell. Once in hell, you will curse existence itself. So straighten up, bring peace and bring prosperity, and make the world a better place. So this is all for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed the book. If you would like to read Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, I will leave the link in the description so you might buy a copy. Subscribe for more videos like this on this subject, and I will see you on the next video.